Welcome, Uncle Aldo, to our program in memory of our Uncle Bona Malwal. You're welcome this afternoon. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you.
We are obviously remembering the passing of our great uncle, a great personality in the history of South Sudan. Um, you obviously knew Uncle Bona very well. Where and when was Uncle Bona born? We know we might not have the exact date of birth, but do you recall where he was born and around what time?
Well, accordingly, Bona was born 1932. He was born in Maduring, that is Akwar, the chieftaincy of his father, and Akwar, of course, of Langjuk, in Twij Mayadit village. At that time, 1931, 32, was the time that the British colonial power was in. And he was born after his father became chief appointed by British colonial administration. And Bona, of course, that time, the Dinka and other tribes in South Sudan were not in favor of what is called education or a mission school. People were not ready to take children to schools, but it was one of the first groups that were actually brought in by orders of British administration to a first school, that the first row, whatever, behind other group like a group of your father, Clement Uboro, and others. Bona immediately was after them. And that is where Bona got the first hint of education and advanced from elementary school up to secondary school. And from there, he was actually employed as a clerk. And the first district where he worked was a wool district before he could be transferred to Khartoum. That is the stage one. Stage two, he actually rose from his department very quickly and very fast, by the way. And Bona was a growing intellectual and very influential in a will as a clerk in the hospital of a will, the first hospital. And he spent a short time from there and was by then transferred to Khartoum. That time, those employed in the administration, side like information, and also in the administration, police, and all that, they used to transfer them to the north. They did not work a lot in South Sudan. And Bona got benefit doing courses in his own area, and he rose very high in his work in Khartoum, getting further education and all that while he was based in Khartoum. And Bona rose as a very influential person in Khartoum. And he led the Torit uprising of Torit in 1955. Bona was already something like 19 years or 20. And he actually led the crisis and got start to be oriented in the case of South Sudan. And throughout, he actually was himself committed to the liberation of South Sudan, especially after the independence of 1956 and the takeover of Abut in 1958, while he was in Khartoum. In Khartoum, he became very influential, and after South Sudanese parliamentarian walked out from the parliament in 1958, and Abut took over, Bona got into the cells of the struggle underground, which was actually underground by Southern Front, Bona, Abel Alier, and the rest administrators like Lemon Boro, your father, and everybody. They worked very hard, and these people actually were liked by people of Northern Sudan because they were the best administrators, were not corrupt, very clean, and very just, especially those who were in the police, the administration, and the courts, like Abel Alier. They were very influential, and today, after working, who actually got involved and got our people who were working in industries. They were all employees of industries in Khartoum. They influenced them and mobilized them.
Thank you very much for that, Uncle Aldo. Next stage, now after he started work and became involved very early in South Sudan politics, especially when he was working in Khartoum in the build-up for the military takeover of Boot. Can you remind me whether Bona did play a role in the Southern Front? How was the Southern Front party created?
Bona Malwal was one of the people, including Gordon Muortat, Gordon Obiey, Abel Alier, Lemon Boro, Logali, Peter Gatquoth, those who were working in the finance, in the courts, in the administration. They decided to organize Southern Front. And in the four of them was Darius Bashir. Darius Bashir was an employee in Shell company. And they had means, Darius Bashir and Agan Ganyangich. They were working in the Shell, and they supported the people like Bona to organize Southern Front, the cells, to support the movement in secrecy, the Anyanya movement. And these people mobilized all South Sudanese who were in the north, all over, properly. And one time came the demonstration to overthrow the military regime, and Southerners came out in big numbers. And the first time for South Sudanese to get together with Northern Sudanese to bring down the government in the street of Khartoum. First time.
This was in 1964.
Yes, 1964.
Right.
And this one was the first momentum of South Sudanese to be seen in the north. And Bona was very effective underground.
Yeah. So those were the activities of the Southern Front, and they got involved in these demonstrations in 1964 that later became known as the October Revolution in the history of Sudan. That led to the collapse of the military government of Abut, and then ushered the Roundtable Conference. Tell us about the Roundtable Conference, what it meant, what it was trying to achieve, and who took part in it.
Now, after demonstration and the fall of a Boot regime on 21st October 1964, South Sudan for the first time was recognized as to have participated in the overthrow of the government, and they were included in the transition government, interim government led by Cyril Katim al Khalifa, who actually declared that it is time to solve the problem, and Southern Front mobilized all over the South and all over the country, including all our schools. I was then in Rumbek Secondary School, and I was actually released from prison in the fall of Boot in October 1964, because I was in prison as a student in the in a will and was detained. Now, South Front prevailed, and they participate in Cyril Katim al Khalifa interim government in a big way. And Clement Boro became Interior Minister, Minister of Interior, got in Muortat, communication, and is born in Mundri, transport. Now, the South were there, and Southern Front then opened an office, and Bona registered Vigilant, the Vigilant newspaper, which was very handy to South Sudanese every morning. It was written by Bona. From the beginning, Bona was the Secretary General before he could actually get out and concentrate on Vigilant. So Vigilant was very handy to all South Sudanese for the first time. And actually, people got mobilized, oriented, well-informed all over the country until the time Southern Front and the government of Sudan then called for roundtable conference to be headed by Vice Chancellor of Khartoum University. Now, this conference called for all South Sudanese and Sanu outside to attend the conference. By then, William Deng was already in the country, and William Deng declared that he was not going to go back to the bush since there is democracy. Southern Front resisted. Southern Front said the time is not up, and we have first of all to see what is the agreement about. But William resisted. Nevertheless, Southern Front continued, and they actually participated in the Roundtable Conference on the 3rd of March, 1965. That one was the turning point for the problem, what they call problem of Southern Sudan for the first time in our history. They never recognized anything. So the confrontation in the Roundtable Conference was completely a confrontation between the parties, northern parties, and Southern Sudan parties. And there were no parties. It was Southern Front representing SANU, and actually after that, William Deng came alone as a party. And Unity Party of Santino Deng also was being enforced by the North, which was not a problem for South Sudanese. But what was interesting was that the presentation of papers, Southern Front and SANU outside Agri Jardin attended, and they had a very strong paper advocating the right of self-determination, not the word secession or separation, influence of Southern Front, the word self-determination, which was actually the advocacy of vigilance, which was written by Bona Malwal. You can imagine, 1964, Bona had was running the vigilance, and the advocacy was self-determination to be done on the basis of referendum. This was the turning point, and the turning point was Southern Front. The outcome of the Round Table Conference was very difficult. The Islamic Front, the Umma Party, the NUP, and even the Communist Party were not for federation at all. They rejected federation completely. And they came in with something called self-government, regional government. See, so Southern Front and SANU managed to get together, and they formed something called 12-man committee. The 12-man committee was SANU, William Deng, and Southern Front. And they cooperated in doing this. And the committee was formed for a conference to come back. The conference never came back. And eventually, after the committee came out with the recommendation, self-government for South Sudan, the northern parties decided to go for elections. And Southern Front rejected elections. See, that time it was Louis Jadwok who was in the Supreme Council, and the Supreme Council decided to take the country to elections. The Southern and Southern Front rejected, especially Southern Front, rejected the election in Southern Sudan. And that elections was imposed, and the North came up with impartial parliament that excluded South Sudan, and they made election and came into parliament in 1965. In July 1965, they came to their parliament, and they forged something like that looked like elections in Equatoria by somebody called Ali Baldo. And they got 21 seats and opposed. See? And the court decided that these people are right. And you know, there was no election in South Sudan, and they did that.
So these events led to the election of Mohammed Ahmed al-Mahjoub, right? And who then declared some very extreme policies to be brought upon South Sudan, including some very notorious, well-known massacres that took place in all of the major cities, Malakal, Juba, and Wau, including the famous massacre in Wau where more than 70 people were killed overnight. Vigilance also played a big role in making the case known, in making the event known in Sudan. Could you talk a bit about that?
Now you are right there. After partial elections of the North, excluding South Sudan, they convened the parliament in 1965, in July 1965, and declared war on the South, saying that the Anyanya or sympathizers or supporters of Anyanya must be dealt with. The announcement was by Ahmed al-Mahdi, Minister of Interior. And that actually amounted to the killing in Wow, the genocide in Wow, Juba, and only Malakal that was safe because the governor of Malakal then was a man of Oma party on the Sadiq side and decided not to stop the army, not to do it in Malakal. But the massacre happened in Wow and in Juba, you know, and that one was a decision of the parliament and Mamaran Majub, Asari, and Imam Al-Hadi. You see, that was the thing. And severely, the starting of the war began from that area. Now, that was the parliament, and that was the declaration by Mamaran Majub, and Bona was still writing. It was the first time for us to learn the word genocide. That was Bona. Genocide, we never knew the word genocide. It was from vigilant. And Bona continued fighting with the vigilant. And that was, again, a return to war and hunting down students, hunting down everybody in South Sudan, killing, not arresting them to prison. It was a really bad government. But Bona never stopped the vigilance.
Later on, born here, after those events, leaves for the United States, right, for further studies. You can tell us a bit of that. And after his studies in the United States, he returns to find that the country then had been taken over by another military group, this time headed by a general known as Numeri. Jafar Numeri. Jafar Numeri takes over. Marial Bona Malwal comes back and eventually joins Numeri's government, becoming a very influential person and someone highly trusted by Numeri himself. Later on, they fall out drastically. You can also tell us about the whole period of the Numeri government and what Malwal did during.
He did all this in the United States before the coup of 1969. Bona was already finished the university and was inside Khartoum when Numeri took over. And Numeri actually took over in 1969 after the first parliament was dissolved in 1968, and we went back to elections. We went back to the election 1968 as Southern Front and SANU. And that was the time William Deng was elected, Bona Malwal was elected, Abdul Alier was elected. They were all in the parliament. Southern Front had 10 members, and SANU had 15 members, 25. That is where William Deng did not come back to the parliament in 1968. He did not come back. And in that parliament, we were together in the parliament, and that was the parliament in 1968 when Southern Front again, after Mamaran Majub, the Southern Front was in the government with Majub because there was an agreement that they will return to negotiations and all that. In 1969, when he took over Numeri, Numeri was collaborated with the Pan-Arabists and the Communist Party to take over. Why they came to the government of Numeri, it was Abel Alia and Joseph Garang were actually nominated in the revolution of Numeri into the government. And these people were influential, including Bona, in the intellectual of Northern Sudan. And when they came, it is Abel Alier who actually influenced Babakir Wadala, who was prime minister, to see that Numeri handles peace in South Sudan. And Bona was very much involved in this. And Abel worked very hard to see that Numeri get to negotiate with outside. That time it was Mansour Khalid also contributed a lot. And through Abel Alier, we were able to get back the recommendations of the round table six-man committee, the recommendation of local government in South Sudan came into form. And that was a negotiation. In our side, Samuel Aru was involved in the Ministry of Southern Sudan Affairs, and especially after Numeri crossed with the Communist Party, things became very clear. You see, involving Abel and Mansour Khalid. And that was the beginning of negotiation between the government of Numeri and the Anyanya led by Joseph Lago. That was the initial way how Numeri came to understand the problem. Bona was not in the first incoming of Numeri. It was Abel Alier and Joseph Garang. Bona came in after the Addis Ababa agreement. Numeri did not know him properly, but the intellectuals of Khartoum were aware of Bona, all of them, they knew Bona. And those of Ministry of Information, all the official knew of Bona contribution into Sudan information. Now, after agreement of 1972, the government of South Sudan was established, and Bona now came to the government as a minister. First of all, he was a deputy minister of information. And finally, he became the Minister of Information and contributed a lot in that one. You know that it is Bona Malwal who actually introduced color TV in Sudan. And that one recruited Numeri to side of Bona. Bona became very close to Numeri, and the members of the military members of the command council of Numeri became very friendly to Bona. Even they can stay evening in the house of Bona. And Bona became very, very influential, helping the system everywhere and connected the system into international media, seriously. And that was, Bona became very influential properly, to an extent that when Numeri was overthrown, Bona decided to open the radio Juba, because radio Amdurman was captured.
This is the short coup that later failed by Hashim Lata, is that right? Hashim Lata survived for 3 days before Numeri returned to power. Is that right? That's the period you're talking about.
I was in Khartoum, by the way. Now, Bona got the radio Guma in Juba to support Numeri while Numeri was under arrest. And Southerners play a big role in the army. The army that was who came out from Shajara, the artillery, was led by South Sudanese, especially the CEOs who led it were mostly from Rumbek, by the way. And that was a group that captured the palace and released Numeri. And Bona became much more influential, very strong, and worked with Numeri. That supported Numeri and the Pan-Arabis, led by Babukra Wadala, left the country. They disassociated with Numeri, leaving Numeri without a partisan support. Because the Umma Party, the Islamic Front, and the DUP were all the national front that was fighting Numeri. So the political parties of the North were all disassociated themselves from Numeri. And Numeri became dependent on intellectuals, Sudanese intellectuals, who actually like Mansour Khalid, and Bona Abdul Aliar, and he became very committed to South Sudanese. That was after the Communist Party and the Pan-Arabist group disassociated themselves with Numeri.
Then, of course, Numeri continued in this situation until 1977 or 1976, when there was another coup attempt of mercenaries who invaded from across the border, Central African Republic and Chad. They were again crushed in Khartoum. But then Numeri fell very weak after that because the militia had been supported by this National Front you are talking about, the traditional sectarian parties and the Muslim Brotherhood, helped and aided by Gaddafi, who had supplied the weapons and the finances for the mercenaries to enter Khartoum. So after they were crushed, Numeri felt the need to reach out to these people. And in 1977, he famously met them in Port Sudan. And that led to many, many changes afterwards that then led later on to the collapse of the Addis Ababa Agreement as Numeri turned against the South. I want you to talk about that and also how Bona, where Bona was at this time.
You are there. After this National Front parties fighting Numeri, and Numeri was continuing, and Mutazaka, they call it Mutazaka, was trained in Libya and really led by Umar Party and other parties. And they actually came to Khartoum. And you know, again, South Sudanese, including Bona Malwal, Abdul Alier, were instrumental. And South Sudanese actually were the one who fought this one properly, because the Northern Army was ambivalent. It was not really committed to support Numeri in the way they should. And that one was defeated. That Mustazaka was defeated, and Numeri returned, and still continue with the support of the South. And after that one came the dialogue. He planned a dialogue with the National Front, the one that actually brought the the Mutazaka. In Port Sudan, they went in to negotiate with them in one of the of the boat, and they came out with the agreement. That agreement included the agreement for Numeri to dismantle the agreement of South Sudan. That was the one that actually came to be a problem. Nevertheless, they came in, Numeri immediately did not cancel, and Bona still was effective while they were present. The time came, see, we actually continue with them, and Turabi and the rest were included in the government, while the self-government in South Sudan still continue until we held our own elections in which Lago came in. Bona was still, and after that, Bona Abdulalir brought Bona to Juba as a minister of industry at the time as Turabi came. In that case, those one got Numeri into Islamic area to turn the country into Islam due to the coming of these people, and that was the time he came in to cut the hands of people, legs, who are thieves, and to the time that he threw all the bottles of wine and whiskey and all that into the river Nile, and saying that nothing at all, Marisa Aram. And Abdul decided to take Bona to Juba. And after that, they managed and they wanted to set up 9 states. And they decided that 9 states should actually include 3 southern states. That was the time we still continue, and we made elections in 1978 to continue with the government. And then in 1983, the implementation of this thing came, and Bonner and others decided and rejected it officially in writing. That was the time Bonner and the rest of South Sudanese, including Hillary and everybody, was taken to prison in Khartoum.
What was born and the South Sudanese opposing from Numeri? To me, I'm thinking about into 3 regions, and also the implementation of what later became the September laws, which is the Islamic laws on Sudan. Previously, obviously, Sudan was a secular state run under common law and traditional laws, including if you're a Muslim, for example, Sharia would apply to you. But after the imposition of Islamic law by Numeri, it became Sharia became the first initial reference of the national law. Is that correct? Are these the things that Bona Malwal and his colleagues were opposed to in 1983, now that Numeri had changed course?
This is correct. The September laws, Numeri enacted September law, turning the country into Islamic State. Bona and leadership of South Sudan, which were still, was Southern Front and SANU, were all arrested They included people like Aru, Ezekiel Machuay, Dr. Toby, and both of them were involved because we were still running our parties in parallel with the SSU. And that was, you are right, when Bona and the rest were arrested, and Bona was the leader of the group, all the group, against Islamic uh, September laws, turning the country into Islam, and also trying to divide the country. He used Joseph Lago and Equatoria to come up with all demonstrations and all this to agitate for division of South Sudan. And Joseph Tumbra was elected, and Joseph Tumbra got involved, and the whole thing. Abel Lier was not there. It was Joseph Lago was vice president, and Joseph Tumbra was the president of High Executive Council. And so South Sudan was divided, and Bona was in prison together with the rest of the people.
Yes, later on, Bona is released from prison and he leaves the country, comes to the UK to stay in exile and in opposition to the Sudanese government, the Nimeri government, for a long period now, for many, many years, later to be joined by many people, including yourself and my father, Gordon Muortat, who already was in the UK in exile for a long time. Now you all are reunited in London as a strong community. Tell us about that time, your work with Juba, with Bona Malwal in the UK, and how you now started to collaborate and assist now the new and the powerful resistance that arose in the South in a position of Nimeri, and to revive the original aspirations of the people of South Sudan. The movement now that later became known, or who that was known at its initiation as the SPLM, SPLA, led by John Garang. How you guys, how you all collaborated with him, the role of Malwal, and later on, the launching of the Sudan Democratic Gazette, now the masterpiece of the SPLM. You could think of if the Vigilant was the masterpiece of the Anyanya movement in the 60s and the early 70s, Sudan Democratic Gazette under Bonner again became the masterpiece for the South Sudanese resistance now, the SPLM, SPLA. Tell us about that period, how you worked together in London, and the role of Bona Malwal, and tell us about Sudan Democratic Gazette, and then how that period ended and his return to Khartoum again.
The stage of time Nimeri was overthrown in 1985. And Soledad came in, going back to democracy and so on. Now, the time of Soledad had 2 years, Samuel Aru was the deputy prime minister, and Bona came up and registered another newspaper, the Sudan Time. Bona registered Sudan Time. And election went on. During elections, Bona that time did not go again for election when the South was divided. He did not go to elections. And that is the time Sadiq al-Mahdi came back as a minister, as a prime minister. And Bona was running the Sudan Times in Khartoum. And from there, that was the time again in 1989, where Bashir came in. When Bashir came in, that was the time Bona decided to come to. Before that, Bona was in Oxford. Before that, he was in Oxford before the coming of Bashir, who was actually in Oxford, and later on became to run Democratic Gazette. And was the time Democratic Gazette started effectively after the Boer uprising in 1983. 1983, Bona actually took this support by running Democratic Gazette in London. And Democratic Gazette was distributed monthly to every to every country, to every leader of every country by Bona. See, all through everybody was getting Democratic Gazette, advocating it. And that was the time again, the time I came in, and Bona was already here with Uncle Gordon. I came in 1993 to London because after coming of these people of Yagmacha to Khartoum, I was the deputy speaker while Bona was here in London. I was the deputy speaker, and I left that one because of the coming of Yagmacha and his involvement in with the system, involvement to fight the SPLM. And he came when I was the deputy speaker of parliament, and I knew how he came out of Ethiopia to Nasser. And the people who actually went to him by boat. And the negotiation actually took place in the Sobat River.
The people who went to him by boat, are these delegates of the Sudanese government sent to Machar while Machar was still with Garang?
And they included a son of South Sudan, Amr Radi. And I had full information about how the negotiation went on and how the agreement was supposed to be signed in Khartoum, and how it was actually in Young Machar was made to make a declaration of having overthrown John Garang on the ground of self-determination and all that. I was aware of this. I will tell you one time. Now, that was what sent me out of Khartoum. I defected as a deputy speaker and came to London. When I came, that is where I joined the committee of Uncle Gordon, in which Uncle Gordon said we have to bring elders of South Sudanese in London. And General Lago was a part of us. He did not contribute very much, but he was always sitting with us. And we brought Ayandit also, and others. There were about 3 Equatorians. And that was, Uncle Gordon wanted to keep us together. And our support was focused on the SPLM and supporting Dr. John. We did this even we were inside. We were taking notes and all what is happening to Dr. John and Bona here, all this. And from there we continue together, Bona writing and making contact still inside with after Martin Malwal and others. And you know, it is our committee that actually brought back Carbino. Carbino, Kwanyin. It was Bona who actually initiated with Martin Malwal and talked to Carbino in Khartoum and talked to John Garang. And Carbino came back. He was involved even things which were happening in Wow. Bona was highly involved. Bona was a man committed. He never turned anything on the road to liberation of South Sudan. Never. But he was
Yeah.
always.
So you are saying that Carabino had come with Carabino had returned earlier to Khartoum in 1991 with Riek Machar, but you are saying now that Bona played a big
Carbino,
role in persuading Carabino to return back to Garang, to return back to the movement.
Yes.
That's what you are saying.
Yes, by telephone, direct. It is Bona who did it. To talk about relationship of Bona Malwal, a big relationship that lasted for 12 years with John Garang. He was frequenting Nairobi up to the village with CSI, Christian Solidarity International. It was Bona that was taking them nearly every month to the villages, and also when they were actually collecting children from slavery, that was the work of Bona. And Bona worked together with John Garang, connected by Dr. Justin Yai, for 12 years. 12 years, Bona was working, writing, and was doing this, going to the area. And when we took the Northerners, Umma Party members, and DUP, and the conference in Asmara, it was a work of Bona, and we went together to Chukdum with the members of Umma Party.
Yes. This is now a very big event in the Sudanese history, what you call the National Democratic Alliance. So now the traditional Sudanese parties, having been overthrown by the Islamist regime, reached out to the SPLA, and now they are all coming together as a Sudan Democratic Forum, in which North Sudanese parties join together with the SPLM in a single organization. You are saying that Bona Malwal here also played a big role.
It is Bona Malwal in our group, including Uncle Gordon, that actually connected these people with the leadership of SPLA, Dr. John Garang. And we took them to Shukudum. I was there myself, and Uncle Gordon did not go, but myself and Bona, we went to Shukudum, and we held a meeting, including these parties of the North, DUP and Umma Party, and that was the initial. It happened. Garang came to Shukudum to receive us, and we were well received. By the way, we had everything, the place of sleeping, and we were got all the facilities, and were looked after properly. The group actually started, and that was what brought the conference of Asmara, where the national this national body was formed And we wanted Dr. John to head the national thing, heading Roma and all that, but he declined for Muhammad Usman al-Margani. And this was a work which included Uncle Gordon and Bonner. You can imagine it was a big thing. And that was a big turn of everything, by the way. That what Bonner did.
The CPA takes place, the referendum takes place, everybody moves in back home. Hundreds, thousands of South Sudanese in the diaspora go back in. The SPLA takes over the military in South Sudan. South Sudanese vote, and we get our independence. Tell us about Bona Malwal's role here, and
Now,
his subsequent relationship and influence on the government of South Sudan, and his relationship with President Kiir.
now, what happened was this. Dr. John severe his relations with Bonner before he could come to London, when we met him in London here. And Uncle Gordon intervened. And in London, we tried to reconcile Bonner with Dr. John. And we sat in the hotel from 6 in the evening to 6 in the morning to bring them together. And I was on the table with Uncle Gordon, and Bonner was present, and Dr. John was present. We managed to reconcile them. But unfortunately, Bonner did not accept the kind of reconciliation we have done. He called it did not go in the way he wanted. And from there, Bonner got out of relationship with Garang. He did not attend the negotiation in 2004 when Garang was negotiating. Bonner got out completely. He was angered because he was not treated well by John, and Dr. John failed to recognize the contribution Bonner did with the Democratic Gazette for 12 years, continuous 12 years, working hard and going to the village to South Sudan with people supporting the charity people supporting them in what they call Sudan lifeline to Sudan. Bonner was involved in big things. Bonner involved in that agreement, Sudan lifeline, and that actually saved our people. And a lot of people came in, like Norway, America, USA, came to support the movement. But our movement, has always been known to not to abide by people who support. And Bonner got angry. Bonner did not associate with the negotiation completely. He was out until the CPA was declared. Bonner was out. But myself and Uncle Gordon, we continue. You can see Bonner was angry. And that's why he became independent and went alone to Khartoum and was made advisor to Bashir by Bashir, not ourselves. Nevertheless, his relations with Salva Kiir was cordial, was still very good. And while he was not happy with John, he was related. His relationship with Kiir Mayardit was good. And after the death of John, still Bona was in relationship with Salva Kiir, and Salva Kiir has a respect for him. Salva Kiir recognized the contribution Bona did in the struggle. Yeah, and from the time he was a young man, he knows what Bona did to the time of CPA. Bona never stopped. See, from that time, from Boot time, in 1964, Bona nevertheless, he never stopped all the time, going to prison, out, and actually advocating the fight. And of course, from there, after after Garang, Bona returned to advise uh, President Salva Kiir, and they kept on cordially, kept on also together, and Bona never stopped going to South Sudan every year. Every year in December, Bona would there to spend time and come back to London and all that until the last day. And we are very happy with what the government has done in the funeral of Bona, which he deserved. Bona deserved whatever has happened now. Until now, the celebration is going on, not only in Twitch, all over South Sudan. You see, and that one, we are very happy of how President Salva Kiir contribution to funeral of Bona. It is a celebration.
Yeah, thank you, Uncle Aldo. Bona's legacy will be remembered for a long time. He's a great leader, a towering personality in the history of our people, in our history. Do you think, though, that we have lost a chance? Do you think that Bona, under different circumstances, and if history had turned in a different direction, do you think Bona is a leader, is someone that could have led South Sudan? And do you think that we lost that chance, that Bona never became the leader of South Sudan?
Bona actually missed leadership, the one of our executive council, especially when Lago contested. That one, when people expected to get Bona or Peter Garkot. Unfortunately, Southern Front continue with Abel Alier. At the same time, when this James Tumbura came, people expected Bona to be the one, because Bona would have fought a lot, would have fought seriously, and people expected. That was not only a miss, that was a mistake of Southern Front, not to bring Bona to the fore, especially when they were contesting with Lago or Tumbura. It was something Abel Aliar would have the one to decline and get Bona, but Abel never thought about this. The division of South Sudan would have not occurred, by the way. He's a fighter. And also influentially would have influenced even people who are working with Numeri. Bona would have done it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lost opportunity.
We respect him. All of us, from Sano or Southern Front, we respect Bona. And Bona was popular all over Barakazal, by the way, because Bona was related to all the chieftaincies in our area. Awil, Rumbek, Uron, and Gorial, even across to Bor, by the way. He would always have visit and call on people responsible to talk to them. He was, and this man was special. He does. When I came here, Bona reached me to advise me that don't stay. You get and seek treatment. See?
Yes.
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 And he actually is the one who got me out
He's
of
got a
it.
caring side. He's a caring man as well as being a great
Yeah.
leader. Brilliant.
And we lost him. We never expected that. That was the time. This was the time of Bona to go. We know people die, but we did not expect because he was walking strongly and stronger than all his age mate completely.
It's true. It's true.
See?
Any final words? Any final words, Uncle Aldo?
My final word to Bona is this. Bona has actually had a place now for his family. He's recognized as a leader and a very clean leader who fought for the country. And particularly in his area, of Twitch area, the whole of Barigzal, Yani Bona has a good name. A name in which I have to tell to his family that this they should follow. One of them must appear, you see, because he has brought his children in a correct way. They are really really cultured, and they have never crossed with anybody, these children, Bona. And it goes back to his family. What I'm saying is that the legacy of Bona, the family legacy, and the public legacy, and the legacy of our liberation should not be forgotten. It is for our country to register it, and Bona has to be placed among the leaders who started war in Anyanya, who are Anyanya too, SPLM, SPLA, and to the time Bona has died. This recognition must be straightforward and just to all our leaders that have passed away. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Aldo. Thank you so much for giving us the time. And hopefully we'll have you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mawan.